Welcome back. So, to make things easier as your first experience with Linux, we are first going to talk about Linux within the desktop realm. Linux provides many different desktop environments, such as GNOME and KDE GUI window managers. In this course, as I mentioned in the intro lessons, we're going to be using GNOME, and for the most part, we're going to be using that environment within a CentOS version 7 based operating system, in which you're going to follow along within the current Linux Essentials lab server that I showed you how to use in a previous lesson. Before we actually jump into our desktop, I want to mention a few X Windows environments that are available out there today. GNOME, and which I'm going to actually show you here in just a moment, is built upon the GTK widget set. A widget set is nothing more than just a library that handles GUI features, such as menus that you see and even dialog boxes. KDE Desktop is one of the most popular desktop environments for Linux. Distributions such as Mandriva and SUSE use this as their default desktop. KDE is built on top of what is known as the Qt widget set. Now, this is the second time that I have mentioned a widget set, and I mentioned that GNOME is built on the GTK widget set. So the Qt library is primarily on the KDE desktop, and GTK is built for the GNOME desktop. These are the two most common widget sets in Linux to date. Real quickly, let's touch on some of the other lightweight X Windows or desktop environments that are out there today. LXDE is a lightweight X11 desktop environment, X11 being the actual library that the XLDE is built on top of. It is meant to use as few resources as possible and works well when you're running Linux on perhaps older hardware. Unity is another one. If you've ever used or installed and played around with Ubuntu, chances are that you've also used the Unity desktop. Canonical, which is the company in which developed Ubuntu, created Unity. It's much like GNOME, and its goals have a simple and clean interface that tends to be great for first-time Linux users. XFCE, originally XFC, was developed to be a commercial desktop environment known as CDE. It was built on the GTK Plus widget set and provides more configurability than some of things like GNOME or Unity. Another goal for XFCE was to consume as few resources as possible. So now that we've gone over some of the primary Windows Linux Desktop X Windows environments, let's actually jump into our Linux Essentials lab server now and take a look at the GNOME environment. So here we are, again on our CentOS 7 server. This should be your Linux Essentials lab server that's available as one of our Linux lab servers in the drop-down menu. Let's take a look at this environment. First of all, you'll notice that you have the main menu over here where it says Applications. We have a Favorites, which is basically most of the applications that you open most often will be assigned to this drop-down. Accessories has things such as the file browser. And then Office brings us to our first application, in which we're going to talk about today. The OpenOffice.org application is probably one of the most popular open source Apache-based Office Suite applications. If you're familiar, I'm sure you are, with Microsoft Windows Office, this is basically the same thing, only open source. You have a calculator, a drawing application, you have a writer, which is just Microsoft Word. For example, let's go ahead and open up the OpenOffice Writer application. You'll notice it looks much like Word, and the fact that we can actually change our fonts, we can do highlighting, we can change colors, we can do bold, italics, and underline on all of our sentences. It's just a basic word processor that you might see available within, again, Microsoft Windows. I highly recommend you play around with the different Office suite. Again, that's available underneath Office. It's already installed on the Linux Essentials lab server. So you can go through and open up the different applications that are available, such as Draw. Let's go ahead and close all this and then talk about the next application. The next application is actually not installed. The next application is Firefox. You're probably, again, familiar with Firefox and the fact that you might use that either on your OS X machine or on your Microsoft Windows machine. Now, up to this point, we have never installed any software. And on this particular lab server, Firefox is not already installed. So let's go ahead and install an application using what's called a package manager. The first package manager that we're going to talk about today, and again, we'll go over this in more detail later on, this is just to get us up and running and get experience using the X Windows desktop. So what I'm going to do is go to Applications, and we're going to open up Terminal. The first thing that we want to do in the terminal is actually become root, much like we did in the earlier lesson. So I'm going to type su for superuser space dash. Once we've done that, we can enter the password that we set up. Again, this is our root password. And the first thing that we're going to actually do is use the Yum package manager. Again, the Yum package manager is something that CentOS and Red Hat-based Linux distributions use for installing packages. Packages being anything from a library or an application or anything that is installable on your Linux distribution. We're going to follow that with the command install, followed by the name of the package in which we want to install. I happen to already know the actual name of our package, which is just simply Firefox. So if I do yum install Firefox, what's going to happen is this is going to go out to an online repository. This repository has all the packages needed to actually download, as well as dependencies, because some applications might need a library and actually to run that application. This is a great example because we'll see here that it's going to install the Firefox application. It automatically knows that this application needs some dependencies that are not already installed. For example, CentOS bookmarks, Liberation Sans fonts, and then the Mozilla file system. These are all dependencies that it needs. It's going to prompt me and say, are you sure you want to download this? And give me the total size, including the application, with its dependencies on how large it is, which happens to be 116 megs. Let's go ahead and hit yes and then enter. What it's going to do is actually go out and download all of the packages needed, and then it will install those packages one by one, and when complete, let us know. There it is, it's complete installing. Congratulations, you've just used the Yum Package Manager for the very first time. We'll go over more options with the Yum Package Manager in a specific lesson later on. If we click Applications, we now have the Firefox web browser. So we can click on that to open up the Firefox web browser. And there you have it. We can go to websites such as www.linuxacademy.com. Another great application that we can actually use is an application called GIMP. GIMP is nothing more than basically an image manipulation program. The best thing that it actually compares to would be the paid program Adobe Photoshop. So let's go ahead and open up GIMP now. You'll notice that I typed the word GIMP, which is the application name that we actually see that the command is not found. This tells me that GIMP is not already installed on our Linux Essentials server. So let's go ahead and install GIMP now, again, this time using the Yum Package Manager one more time for practice. So I'm going to type yum, followed by install, followed by the actual name of the package, which happens to be GIMP. It goes out, finds all the different dependencies. So if we scroll up here, it's going to find the actual application base, which is the GIMP application itself. And there are several dependencies and libraries that are needed in order to download GIMP. Let's go ahead and hit yes to download all those dependencies and the main package now. And it's going to download all 17 packages and then begin to install shortly after. Okay, great. So now that we have it installed, if I now go up to Applications, it's created a brand new organizer for me right here underneath Graphics. And there it is. It's the GNU Image Manipulation Program, which is known as GIMP. So if I click that, it's going to open it up. And here we have it. This might look very familiar for those users out there who have used Photoshop in the past. We can use this application to either create brand new images or use this application to actually open up other images and edit them, resizing them, or even creating our own manipulation to that actual application. So before we go on to the next applications, let's switch gears for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and move into Ubuntu workstation that I have. So now here we are on my Ubuntu desktop. Ubuntu desktop, happens to be 14.04 long-term support, happens to be using the Unity X Windows environment. So what I'm going to do is simply click on the main menu here and type the name of the application, which I already have installed, called Thunderbird Mail. Thunderbird Mail is much like Microsoft's Outlook application in that it will actually be used to read, view email as well as type out new email and send it out. Much like Outlook, it actually allows us to create new emails using all kinds of HTML formatting where we can change the color and we can embed images and we can send off different things like that in our email just like we normally would. Thunderbird also has an address book in which we can keep our addresses all locally on our desktop within Thunderbird. Go ahead and play around with Thunderbird if you wish on your own Ubuntu desktop image, and you can have a little bit of fun with that. The next application that I want to talk about, since we're on our Ubuntu desktop, is we actually want to use a program called Audacity. Audacity is a very powerful audio editor that allows you to record, edit, and splice, as well as mix audio. It's open source as well, and it is not installed on my environment, so what I'm going to do is actually open up my terminal window, and in my terminal window, we're going to be introduced to a brand new package installer. This time, much like Yum, it's called apt-get. apt-get behaves much like Yum in the fact that it is used to go out to install things such as, again, libraries or applications themselves. So in order to do that, I'm going to become root. I'm going to type su space dash and then enter in my password. So once I become root, let's go ahead and use this package management utility called apt-get by typing apt-get. We're going to do install, and we're going to put the name of the package, this time being Audacity. So I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask if I want to go ahead and download this package and install it. I'm going to go ahead and hit yes, I do. All right, great. So once that's done, if I go up here to the main menu bar, this time I'm going to type the name of the application called Audacity. There's Audacity now. Let's go ahead and open it. First time that we open it, tells us a little bit about Audacity and how we can get help. And we notice we have this application here in which we can load a recorded sound blip, and we can actually edit the sound, splice it, do whatever we want with that sound file, much like we can with other paid source applications, only for free again using Audacity. Let's go ahead and close Audacity. The next few applications I want to touch on real quick. One is called Blender. Blender is an awesome open source 3D rendering application which a lot of 3D studios for animations, etc. actually use. Pidgin is actually an application that I use. It's available actually on Windows, Linux, and on OS X. It's an instant messaging tool that allows us to IM. And we can use just about any provider out there for instant messaging that we could even think of. And a Pidgin allows us to have that all in one application. Finally, Calibre, which is an ebook management tool. You can actually use it to sort and manage ebook collections. It can actually read all kinds of ebook formats regardless of their format. So that's just a taste of some applications that are widely used in the Linux desktop realm. There are, of course, so many more in which we would take days and days to actually talk about, but I wanted to hit on just a few. Let's go ahead and finish this lesson and move on into the next lesson where we're going to talk about server applications.